It's Florida in the spring, and iRacing has just introduced rain. With it being our first enduro of the season, the drivers might just be in for a doozy. Will Sebring deliver, or will they be all wet? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Porsche Owners Club Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is IMSA driver Michael Johnson. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sebring's been a staple for sports cars, so of course our Porsche owners had to visit here. Let's take a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Home to the 12 Hours of Sebring, one of the most grueling tests in endurance racing, this is a track which has earned a fearsome reputation among drivers. The circuit itself is located on the southeastern edge of the city of Sebring, Florida, and was built out of Hendricks Army Airfield shortly after World War II. 3 layouts are currently in use, ranging from 1.7 to 3.7 miles in length. The longest course, which is perhaps the most well-known with it being the one used for the famed endurance race, shockingly still contains portions of the original airfield surface. It's this aspect which has become a signature feature of the track, making it extremely bumpy for racing. Sunset Bend in particular nearly shakes cars apart while they attempt to navigate the high-speed 180-degree corner. As you'd expect for the side of an airfield, there's nearly no elevation change over the course of a lap, but many of the curves are dramatically tall and unforgiving, daring drivers to glance them yet not hit them directly. Thankfully, places to pass are plentiful, including spots like the Hairpin and Cunningham. However, the many fast, sweeping turns creates a dilemma for car setup, since a vehicle that's made too stiff could wind up bottoming out on the onerous bumps. In the end, if you have the wherewithal to withstand the track's rough nature, you're likely to fare well. And since Florida fans almost always show up in huge numbers to witness this test of car and driver, you'll have plenty to impress at this legendary North American road course. Well, this is a track that is going to test these drivers, considering its bumpy nature, Michael. So I'm sure they're going to have to keep their wits about them for the full 90 minutes.
90 minutes of the 3.7 miles of hell that you actually want to visit. This place is amazing. You have so many different track surfaces on every single lap. I can't remember last time I counted through them, but I've never gotten the same number twice. I know, I think it's like 14 different track surfaces, or it's 13. No, it's 19. So many different versions of track, of pavement here that you never know what the car is going to do through these just amazing 17 corners. Coming down that start straight, you can go 4, 5, 6 wide, but then it comes creeping down into barely enough for 3 wide and usually not enough for 3 wide through the rest of the majority of the track. And then, of course, you get back around to Le Mans and it's off again down the Ullman Straight for turn 17, Sunset Bend. Usually called 17 because, as I've said before, 17 ways in, 17 ways out, and they are all correct. This is going to be a blast to watch for 90 minutes.
Certainly a good one to bring out for their enduro in this series. Now, before we get to the racing, we do want to mention our sponsors, which includes Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Well, the championship is really starting to take shape here, but with Sagar Dewan not being around last time, that means Arnold Roper's win has put him up to 3 points behind Sagar. So AJ has managed to make it a bit of a fight here at the front. Jad Duncan unfortunately did not have a good run last time, so he slips down into third. But Michael Bolton also finished on the podium last time, so he jumps up into 4th position. And Chris Walsh, who missed another race, is having similar problems to what we saw last time. His attendance kind of scuppering him, but he is here today. We'll see if he shoots back up the order in the end. As you can see, it gets quite tight down there below him as you get farther down in the championship. But as we said, things slightly different on this one. Michael, why don't you run us down the race details?
Well, this is round 6 out of 13. This 90-minute race, normally 30, is for double points. This is all in the 911 GT3R, the 992 version, and everyone runs the exact same setup. So don't expect anybody to have trimmed out that wing or really push for a little extra downforce. Everyone's running the exact same thing. So watch for some really, really close racing, especially when it's the setup that speaks to that particular driver.
Got just a couple minutes left here in this qualifying session. Interesting to note that Jacob Abrams still has yet to set a time. He's going to want to get one on the board here. The big thing, though, that we've been talking about here, Michael, is look at the track temperature. It is up at least 13 degrees since we first took a look at it 20 minutes ago.
Right. When we first tuned in, tried to get a little lay of the land, see who's doing what, who's really enjoying this track, who's having trouble. The track was a whole lot cooler. The air temperature has not changed at all. It has been exactly the same, but that track temperature is climbing up. I think someone hid a volcano or the sun up underneath the track here today.
Yeah, it's certainly been something. I'm sure it's making it difficult to find lap time here at the end of this qualifying session, although Chris Walsh is not being disrupted by that because his last lap was his quickest at a 2:06, which is mighty quick around here. In fact, the only driver to break 2:01 right now. Dylan Scott about 0.8 of a second behind him currently. And Chris should have just enough time to get around for one more lap, it looks like, as long as he doesn't dilly-dally too much down the backstretch.
I have turned a 2-minute 6 around there at this track in this car, but that was when I was able to tune the setup to my liking. Doing it in this setup, that's some pretty amazing driving from Chris Walsh, which actually you would expect because Chris has been just a real go-getter. He gets on the track and pretty much drives away from everyone unless he has some unfortunate incident like, well, pulling into the pit. I guess he's pretty comfortable with that 0.8 lead.
Yeah, so he's not going to try and improve in this final minute of racing. Dylan Scott is on his last go at things, so this is it for him. He doesn't have enough time to set another one. I'm checking to see if any other drivers will cross the line in time, and it looks like Ian Roche might be our last one, with Jacob Abrams potentially being the first to take the checkered flag today. There's Roche starting his new lap. 10 seconds to go. This is going to be tight for Abrams, who is just going to come around the final corner right now. You can really see how hazy it's been getting. The humidity continuing to go up, which is definitely a sign that we could see some rain coming up a little bit later. And did he actually finish it? Yes, he took the checkered flag. Unfortunately, did not set a time.
Yeah, unfortunate for Jacob. Usually going for that John Deere award, but I think today he's really going to try to find all those different bits of pavement out there that he can play with. Meanwhile, Dustin Heindel coming across the start-finish line here at the end of qualifying. Behind him, that looks like Dylan Scott, I believe, trying to improve his time. Don't think he's going to be able to catch Chris Walsh just yet.
BJ Fulton as well crosses, and sets his fastest at a 2:01.7. So nicely done. That'll put him into 6th here right at the end. We're not anticipating any rain coming in until later in the race here, but we'll keep you up to speed on that. As of right now, we have at most about a 25% chance of rain in about an hour and a half from now. So actually, is that actually 2 hours from now? I'm seeing it is 2:41. That's saying at 4:30. So yeah, it's that might be just a bit after the end of the race, actually, as it's saying. But there could be a chance of rain right at the very tail end of this. It is fluctuating around. It was as high as at 40% at one stage, but it has gone back down again. So we'll just have to check in on that from time to time.
I think iRacing is probably going to take the opportunity to enjoy showing off a little rain, though. We were talking about this in another series just recently, where I think they had a 2% chance of rain when everyone joined the session, and then everybody looked out and went, "Wow, quite the downpour! It's cats and dogs here."
Just because it says that that is the chance percentage, that doesn't mean that you will or won't. It just means that's the likelihood. And well, you could still get it. And considering it rained at 2%, yeah, we could have rain at that 25% that I was seeing there. And it says at about 4 p.m. Virtual Standard Time, 15%, 5% chance at 3:45 p.m. If we start at I believe, let's see, it is just about 2:45. So that would take
It's
us
going to be
to,
tight. It's going to be
yeah,
really tight. We could catch a couple of sprinkles at the end, although the way this weather has been fluctuating, there's no telling. And look at that wind, though. We've got a 17
yeah,
mile per hour wind down the pit straight. That's going to make those overtaking opportunities going into turn one pretty difficult, but they're going to have to be careful as they work their way into turn one with that extra 1 or 2 miles per hour. 17-mile-an-hour tailwind is pretty heavy, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's sent a couple of cars around on the first couple of laps.
absolutely. Well, let's go through our starting grid now. And up on the pole position, Chris Walsh is going to start ahead, or next to, rather, Dylan Scott there on the front row. Mark Rondeau will begin next to them in P3, as Ezra Kelderman, newcomer as far as we can tell, will start fourth. AJ Roper will be P5 at the beginning. BJ Fulton will start in sixth. Then it's Dustin Heindel seventh today. Ian Roche setting his lap in eighth on the grid. Larry Haas in ninth, and Paul Wren in 10th. Last driver to set a time. Travis Brown, Jacob Abrams, and Adam Abrams did not set lap times, but it doesn't look like Travis Brown is in the session right now, so he might only have 12 cars starting this race here today. Also worth noting, they do have the potential for a caution on the first lap. If drivers accrue 20 incidents or more on the first lap, a yellow will come out.
Yeah, that's a full course yellow. Everyone just has to slow down, take a breath, because, sometimes beginning of a race, it gets pretty exciting and people get a little bit jumpy in there. So it's an opportunity to say, okay, guys, let's reset this and not do the same thing again. Meanwhile, taking a look at that weather, mostly cloudy. You can see there huge clouds in the background. It is a very overcast day, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees Celsius. That track temperature still climbing up to 93. That's 34 Celsius. And that tailwind we were talking about, 17 miles per hour. That's going to be, I think, a little bit of a story here today. But it is Florida, 92% humidity. That's kind of on the low side for Sebring.
Really, I can attest to that. I got to go to it in person recently, and yeah, it was muggy there. Even when it wasn't hot out, it certainly felt like you could just cut through the air with a knife as they take off behind the pace car, trying to warm the tires there. Dylan Scott doing what he can to prep this and get ready to go. Pace car going to peel off and release Chris Walsh. Will we be able to get through without a caution flag at the start? We've had a couple recently at the beginnings of these races, so let's cross our fingers that we can keep clean, as there is the green flag, and Walsh does not get a good jump. He's on the inside, though. Dylan Scott starting to get a bit of a nose ahead as he ekes forward, round the outside, up into turn one. Bumpy left-hander this one, and Dylan is going to back out of it as Chris will take the lead.
Dylan taking a look at that inside, going into the kind of non-turn two, but meanwhile, behind them, look at that. It's really good movement there. Looks like Rondeau got a little bit behind AJ Roper, though, up into P3. AJ making moves right from the start.
So 11 cars took to the start of the grid on this one. Bit of a battle back here with Dustin Heindel. He's trying to hold off Ian Roche as they head towards the hairpin, and under braking, Roche with a great run down to the apex. He's going to be able to take it away, but can he get the throttle down? Look at the steering wheel of Heindel as he wiggles back and forth to control it.
Yeah, he wants to keep this position. He is in a good spot when they come up into the braking zone, but it looks like he didn't quite have it. And oh, is that contact? That was really close. Looks like Ian Roche just made it out of there. Dustin Heindel did not necessarily make contact, but he has lost that position.
Remember those incidents where they make contact? That's 4 incident points right there. And that means that that can add up. We're still not out of the first lap, so we could still see the caution come out if enough cars go off track and hit one another. So far, though, it's been quite clean. I will say that Dylan Scott, there on screen right now, has AJ Roper all over the back of him.
AJ didn't make a move. He started off P5, if you remember. He has been making moves up here. Look at this, getting the nose in there. He has overlap, backs out of it early, knows this is a 90-minute race, but look at that, able to make that overtake. He has the inside as they come onto the main straight. Looks like the longer legs, though, belong to Dylan Scott. Is he going to be able to retake him going down into turn 1? Little bit of a draft. I don't know if he can quite get there, but it is close.
He's going to hold on to it on board with AJ, looking back now. And oh, he went a little bit wide, kicking up the dirt out of turn 1. He goes defensive because of that. Dylan going to try and fight back round the outside of turn 3. Gets some wheel spin, no dice.
Yeah, there's a big fight going on here, but look behind Dylan Scott, too. This is a little bit crazy because I think we got Marc Rondeau really wants to get that position back. Marc Rondeau started off in P3, currently in P4. He definitely was hoping to move up there, but kind of got out of position on that start. Now he's working his way to put himself into a good attack position on Dylan Scott.
So as these 4 head down into Cunningham once again, have to remember this is the battle for second, essentially. With this train of cars forming, Chris Walsh has already gapped them to about 3 seconds. So he's running away as we check out Ian, still behind BJ Fulton now, coming down to the braking of Tower. And as they just glance off that inside curb and let it track out, now they pick up speed towards Bishop. And look at the trees in the background. You could see them wavering with the stiff wind that's blowing.
Yeah, that wind, like I said, I think it's going to be a bit of a story. I think that may be what happened to Marc Rondeau. I think he just got a little bit too quick and had to pedal the car a little bit to keep it pointed in the right direction heading around this racetrack, and now he finds himself down 1 position. However, this is early in the race. Remember, we have 90 minutes. We're going to have a pit stop through here. This is not over for Marc Rondeau.
Kelderman going to look to the inside of Rondeau, tries to hold him off that long way around, gets the good exit as he brings it all the way out to the wall on the outside. And now he starts to once again shut the door on Kelderman. We jump on board with Ezra as we follow him down to the apex through turn 1, tracking out to the curbs. Just a little bit of dirt kicked up by Rondeau, but nothing bad as he holds on to that 4th position until now when he spins. Ezra's going to get him. Another car nearly running into him. That was Ian Roche. Oh, and another car. 4 cars involved in this.
I think Heindel got caught up in that. The number 8, unfortunate for Dustin Heindel. He was having such a good run early on in this race, but I think you're going to see a sigh of relief from Dylan Scott, who's not going to have that. He can now focus forward because he's got about a 3-second gap behind him. Let's take a look at the replay here.
That took a long time to happen, and just really unfortunate. We're going to watch Larry Haas first. I know we saw a little bit of his incident and an overcorrection through turn 1. Oh, does he hit the wall?
Yeah, pretty hard here. Watch this. Ooh, but did not lose any body panels.
Interesting. Very lucky on his part, because that looked like he thwacked it pretty decently. But we come back live to Kelderman once again. Kind of got tangled up in that wreck. He was trying to go by his spinning rival, just could not avoid him. And that gave a couple of positions to Ian Roche, who is now up into 5th.
Yeah, Ian Roche in 5th right now. Still got a bit of a battle to try to catch up to BJ Fulton in front of him. But the real battle is behind him. Ezra Kelderman not taking this lying down. He's ready to move back into those positions where he was just a lap or two ago. He's right up under the wing. You almost can't see him. There he is, peeking that little eye out right there, right side. Just pops it out, opens it up, goes into this court. Nice positioning. But remember, 17 ways in, 17 ways out. Who's going to be the better here? It looks like I think Ian Roche was just being polite here. He didn't need to press it because, again, this is an hour and 23 minutes left in this race. Plenty of time. Meanwhile, Chris Walsh pulls, once again, fastest lap of the race, 2:01.7.
Ooh, big look to the inside from Jacob Abrams. He's going to attempt to pass Ian. Ian fights back. It's a good run off the corner as they head into turn 3 once more. Last time, this went a little bit south for a couple drivers through here. This time, they make it out the other side, but Ian doesn't complete the pass. Jacob Abrams is going to be able to hold on to that 6th place.
Yeah, Jacob Abrams not taking the John Deere Award today. He's actually keeping it on track. Just like I said, he likes this track. He has a lot of fun here. Now, I remember racing Jacob just playing around in a practice one time in the GT4s. He loves these cars with the ABS. He has a magic touch on the brake pedal when it comes to cars with ABS. So watch for him to be out braking some people.
Looks like we got another replay pulled up. So this was Rondeau and his little scuffle with Ezra. Just over-rotated the car, it looks like. And it starts to go. Ezra thought he could sneak through the inside, but unfortunately there was a car there. And Heindel, as Rondeau is trying to recover, just could not find enough track.
Yeah, tough for him. Looks like Heindel is still about almost 3 seconds off the tail of Paul Wren. Still trying to make up some time. Don't know if he got any damage from that. But Rondeau is, I believe he had to take a quick jump into the pits there to get his spare car.
He definitely did. So he was in and out fast, but unfortunately that's not within the pit window. So he's going to have to make another visit for fuel in the meantime. Got another one that we're pulling up here. Larry Haas had yet more problems. That's into Jean Debian and then down into Le Mans. This can be a tricky one sometimes, especially considering you got to try and gas it up all the way out there. Oh, he did not get away lucky this time.
Although it does look like he still held on to all the body panels. Not sure how, but I'm sure there's some suspension damage after that one.
Well, not enough that he couldn't get away without taking a tow to pit lane, which he just exited from now. So he's back out on track, a lap down from the leaders. Paul Wren, another one we saw for the first time last round. Oh, as he bounds over the curb there. You got to be careful with that one as it juts up quite a bit. He's looking at a potential 8th place here, up 2 positions from where he started.
Yeah, turns 3, 4, and 5 right there. Those curbs are so high. Now, getting down here to the motel turn, those are super flat. You just drive right over them. But those 3, 4, 5, those are so high. They don't look like they're that big. But I can tell you, when you're in the car, it feels like you've run over a curb on a regular city street. They are pretty high, pretty sharp, and they will just jar you.
Indeed. And he continues here through Collier, trying to give them a bit of a berth before they break for Tower. That is Ian Roche just in front of him. He goes a bit wide at the apex, loses some time to that number 7. So he'll have to regroup and try to catch him later. Same thing with Roper on Walsh here. Look at the distance as we stare down the Ullman Straight. He has lost a lot of time in these early stages.
Yeah, that's 4.7 seconds, or 4.8 seconds now. But right behind AJ is Dylan Scott. Dylan is about 8/10 off his tail and kind of content to be there for right now. He's not getting too much wing wash at that distance, which is really important when you're going through turn 17. You need your aero to be working properly because it is so bumpy through there. It's anyone's guess what the suspension is doing. Right now, still not seeing any rain within the area. My radar is fully clear. And in fact, looking at the forecast, it's now gone down to about 12%, just about when the race is supposed to end. So it continues to fluctuate on us, keeping us guessing on whether or not we will get a sprinkle towards the tail end of this one to shake things up as Roper has to fight with Dylan Scott for P2, the 07
versus the 08, separated by about 7 or 8 tenths of a second.
Yeah, it's coming down now. It looks like Dylan is possibly thinking of making a run. But honestly, if I were Dylan, I would just sit here and enjoy the view for a little bit. Let that car in front make that big giant hole in the air so you use less fuel. Now, that's going to play big later because these guys are going to have to go through a pit rotation. And when they do, the car that used less fuel takes on less fuel to finish the race, thereby getting a little bit quicker pit stop and maybe making the pass there.
So we come down into Cunningham here. Once again, Heindel struggling to try and make the apex a bit, but he'll hold on to it at least and keep it on the black stuff. As he flies into tower, we're going to ride on board with definitely one of the most impressive rigs that I think I've seen.
Yeah, if you take a look there on the right side, you can see he is at full throttle. That's the green bar that you see right there. Now it goes into brakes. You see, you can watch his brake trace as he's driving along here. Really interesting view for us to be able to see inside the data, the real-time data that's going on with him as he comes up really quick on Paul Wren, gets a much better exit out of Le Mans and gets around him. Paul Wren falling back to P9, Dustin Heindel up into P8.
I think Wren cut the course a little bit through Le Mans, so that's what sent him backwards there. He had to give the time back. So he falls to 9th, Heindel up to 8th position now. And we got a car in pit lane, Ian Roche. Now, again, this is too early for a pit stop, or at least a scheduled pit stop.
Did he have too much contact or something and maybe get a...
I don't see a black flag.
I don't see a black flag either. So it looks like he actually intends to stop. Maybe he does have some damage we didn't see. And, well, nope, he's going to take on tires and fuel, it looks like.
Now, this is a weird call. Not sure what exactly is going on. He was involved in that wreck that saw cars come together at turn 3. So wonder if maybe that was something that did upset the car enough that he was kind of feeling it out and realized, no, I can't carry on like this.
Yep, looks like he's working his way back out onto the racetrack now, gets around those cones at the end of pit straight. Those are always frustrating. I know a lot of people go out there for track days and those cones are not there. For the races, those cones are there. They want to keep us really wide and slower for that really quick traffic that's coming through right up against the wall. But meanwhile, looks like back with Ezra Kelderman. Ezra is back into P5. He is down 1 from where he started. But he looks like he's making up ground right now on BJ Fulton. He is under a second off of BJ's tail. I think BJ might be starting to feel the heat here.
And last lap for Ezra was a 2:02.9. Fulton, a 2:03.4. Definitely much faster than that number 2 machine. But he also has a bit of damage on the right front. Remember, he was also involved in that. That's where he got into the side of Rondeau as he was trying to avoid him. Ooh, I thought I saw a little bit of a correction there coming through Sunset Bend. Thankfully, he was able to hold on to it. We now hop on board. It's, yeah, the right front of the car, I think, is just a little bit buckled up.
Yeah, that's not original factory bodywork there. That's not how they designed this car. I'm sure he's getting a little bit of an aero disadvantage from that little crunch up there on that right front. But it doesn't seem to be affecting him too much. And if he sticks here in BJ's wake, he's going to be able to hopefully save some fuel, because that is definitely going to cost him some fuel mileage while he is trying to get to that pit window. So as long as he's able to stick close to BJ and have that break in the air, he's got a chance of hopefully finishing this race a little better when he goes into pits at the pit rotation and takes that spare car.
Yeah, that's probably what he's waiting for at this stage. If he's feeling any effects, if it's not handling well, if it's losing some straight line speed, he needs to pop in at the soonest opportunity. And we continue to see the moisture in the air pick up as it's been getting hazier and hazier. I mean, just look at the background. You can just barely make out the trees in a lot of places at times, which is interesting with how windy It is. Checking the weather again to see if there's been any changes. No, hasn't changed since I last spoke about it. Still at about 12% chance towards the end of the race, and still at about 92% humidity I'm seeing.
But the track temperature is cooling off. Remember, we were up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, down to 87 now, closer to what we were seeing near the end of the later portion, I should say, of the qualifying portion of this show. So right now, back with Larry Haas. Larry, still that lap down, but man, he's putting in the laps. I got to admire Larry. He gets out there and turns laps every week and just has a great time and actually races quite well. I've done a little bit of coaching with him from time to time, and I got to tell you, Larry is one of my favorite people to work with just because he takes that coaching so well and he applies it so well, and I think we're going to see him continue to have a good time with this POC group for quite a while.
He's got about a minute and a half to make up to get to Ian Roche right now. But we know that he had to come in and take extensive repairs. Well, not extensive repairs. He had to take his spare car and wait for the tow, really, I think was the thing mainly. There's Ian here in that 10th place. And yeah, Larry's just gone through turn one. Ian's just coming up to the final turn to tell you the distance between them right now. So Larry has not been lapped by Ian, but it's close. So he's technically a lap down from the leaders, but not from this car.
Although Ian trying to put on a little bit of a drift show back there right when we switched to him. He was getting a little bit wiggly. I think it was out of Le Mans. He had that rear end, wanted to come around pretty hard. Right now going through turn one, though, he looks pretty solid, bouncing up over those bumpy bits of the racetrack through turn one. That can be scary at speed. Then here we go through 3, 4, and 5. He's right up on that curbing. Just great positioning from the number 7 car through that.
You know, we were following that battle between Ezra and BJ earlier. I think BJ's responded. His last lap, his fastest of the race, 2:02.8, which pretty much matches Kelderman from earlier. So he's, picking it up to try and see if he can respond as we're checking out Rondeau now on your screen. In 9th, he's the next one up from Ian Roche, about 20 seconds difference between himself and that number 7 machine. And remember, he's a much quicker car. He's 6 positions down from where he began. So we're expecting him to get back into it, and especially since he got his spare car. So he's basically hustling to try and catch up to Paul Wren, who's the next one up the road.
Mark Rondeau is one of those guys who is on the track all week long. Every night he joins into the practice sessions. He runs lap after lap after lap after lap. He knows what the car is going to do at every point of this racetrack. The incident we saw him in, it was just kind of one of those weird things. I think he might have been looking in his mirror a little more than he expected and found himself a little bit offline and not quite expecting the car to do what it did. But watch for him to move back up. Remember, he started P3 in this race. I expect him to get closer to that end of the lineup.
Checking back in on Ezra once again. BJ Fulton now within about 9/10 of a second. Almost looks like Ezra could be struggling a little bit himself because it's gone to a 2:03.1 the last 2 laps for him. BJ backed it down to a 2:03.1 again, so he's wasn't able to keep up that pace of a 2:02.8 that he had last lap. Still, if they stay as is, then this is going to be a bit of a stalemate.
Well, I can tell you from having raced against BJ several times, I have not raced Ezra before, but I know BJ, if he gets in front of you, he will absolutely pace you. If he finds that he's opening up too much, he's like, I'm driving too fast, let me pull it back. Oh, wait, he's closing up on me, I need to open this up a little bit. He's always playing that gapping game. He's trying to control what's happening behind him, and usually does a fantastic job. So let's see how long he can hold that out here tonight.
I'm trying to figure out if that's like a Super Mario Brothers themed helmet that Ezra has on himself that we can kind of see in the mirror a little bit. It certainly looks like it.
I think it is. I think you're absolutely right. I think it is Mario for sure.
Love that. I love the creativity that a lot of drivers manage with their liveries and their race suits and their helmets as well, that they're allowed to modify here in the sim. A tip of the hat to Jacob Abrams, up 5 positions from the start, failed to set a qualifying time. We don't often get to see Jacob do all that well, but man, he's looking at a 6th spot potentially on this one. In fact, let me check to see what his last one was on our scoring sheet here.
Like I was saying, he likes this track. I don't know if he admits to liking this track, but it's clear from his performance here, especially today, that this track just works for him. And I think he's been placing the car. I was watching him through practice, watching him through qualifying. He has excellent placement of the car. He has excellent control of the car. So I think if we keep checking back in with Jacob, we're going to find he keeps moving up little by little, closing those gaps, getting around somebody, just annoying them enough for the person in front of him to make a mistake. That person in front, though, is going to be the second guy on the screen here, Ezra Kelderman. BJ would be right after that.
So I've been looking through, and it looks like over the last 3 seasons, I think there's been 1 podium for Jacob Abrams. That happened in 2023 season 1 when he did that, but his best last year was a P5. So he needs 2 more positions to try and best that, do his best since 2023 season 1. As we watch from the back of BJ Fulton, you said that he likes to pace the car behind. Well, he might want to pick it up a little bit once again. Ezra is starting to get a little dangerously close.
Yeah, just curious, Joe, do you happen to know who the champion was 2023 season 1 off the top of your head?
I don't know. Some guy, I think, lucked into it a little bit there.
Yeah, I'll go with that for sure. Yeah, there was definite luck. A couple of guys didn't show up. But, hey, look at this. We got Ezra trying to make a move into turn 1. Good positioning. Holding on to it. Looks like BJ's just going to give this up, I think. He does not want to push it too hard. I think he knows there's some damage there. But look at that. Putting the hammer down, trying to close it up down to turn 3. Oh, thinks the better of it and decides to tuck back in behind. I think he's okay here, though. He knows Ezra has damage, doesn't want to overrun those tires either. I'm wondering if he's thinking about he's taking on so much fuel that he won't be able to change tires. I'm pretty sure they can do a tire change in the fuel fill window, so I don't know why he would be trying to save them at all.
Yeah. With them having full fuel tanks available to them in this series, I believe he should be able to refill it, even though it should only be for about 30 minutes, a little less than 30 minutes of racing to finish this out. I think that's enough time to take 4 tires without seeing a hit on pit lane. But, yep, looks like Ezra has managed to at least get back to where he started. Now, the bad news is it's 6 seconds up to Dylan Scott, the next car in line, on the podium. So it'll take a bit for him to get there, but certainly not impossible, considering we are just about a third of the way through.
Yeah, a third of the way into this race. We've got Dylan Scott in third, AJ Roper in second, and Chris Walsh. Well, there's a surprise. Not in P1. Chris holding on to, I think that's about a 10.5-second lead he's got out front there. So, yeah, Chris Walsh doing what Chris Walsh does.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot from him since he joined up last season, and has been pretty dominant when he does get out there on track. Just unfortunate that he's had obligations and real life stuff that has kept him away from time to time. You can even see what gear he's running from this camera angle, up to 4th as he accelerates Jacob Abrams into 5th gear now, down the main straight into 6th, before finally he's going to slam on the brakes and then swing it through turn 1.
Look at that. Like I was saying before, really good positioning. I think he may have lost about 1/10 of a millimeter of paint on that inside wall. He was so close up to it. He's been doing that. He's had fantastic placement lap after lap after lap. I think we're going to see him trying to close this up, because he is making headway right now on BJ. He's down to about 1.25 seconds off of BJ's tail. That's close enough to get a bit of draft, but BJ also has some draft off of Ezra Kelderman. So I'm curious to see how this particular little trio is going to play out.
Tell you what, every time we get shots of the trees, you can just really see how much that air is buffeting everything around. It hasn't gone down. It's still been about 15, 16. Yeah, and look at the flags too to really show you. And that is something that is affected by the wind in iRacing. That's not it's not like that's a canned effect. What direction it's blowing and how hard it's blowing will determine how hard and how stiff those flags are. And I mean, look at that. They are fully out.
Yeah, they are waving proudly, and again, it's that push down that pit straight. So as we watch Chris Walsh right here coming through there, he's going to transition from route right here. As soon as you come around from the bridge there, that's the bridge to get into the paddock area here. And as soon as you get past there, that huge gust of wind is just going to launch that car. And that's why I think we're seeing several people get a little bit squirrely going in through the last part of 17.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that. And Chris Walsh certainly has it under control on this one as he goes through turn 3. Just an update on the weather, no change. It's still at about 12% chance of rain at 4:30 in Sim, which would be just about at the end of the race. So we could still see some rain, but it's looking less and less. That said, I mean, look at the clouds from some of our angles. It looks like a front is coming in.
It definitely does, and it seems to be getting darker and thicker on that cloud. I mean, look at that shot. If you look off into the background, I know it's hard to not look at that gorgeous Porsche right there. That's AJ Roper. But when you take a look at that background, it is just so dark. I swear that's got to be rain off in the distance.
It feels like it, and I'm still seeing 0% chance until about 4 o'clock, which is about 40 minutes from now. Then it goes up to 3%. But, I mean, the iRacing weatherman, he might be wrong. It might need that umbrella with you at all times just to be safe as we check in with Dylan Scott now. And the 08's been running in 3rd position and has to worry about Ezra Kelderman behind him. Ever since he took that position, last lap for Dylan, 2:02.8. Last lap for Ezra, 2:02.4.
Ezra's trying to close this up. I think Ezra has a little bone to pick. He wants to get up there and go play with Dylan for a little while. That's a bit wide, Dylan. I think Dylan may be feeling the heat. He knows Ezra's coming. So running a little bit wide there on the exit, heading down to the Ullman Straight. Now, let's watch him go through this corner. I want to see if he catches any effect from the wind as he comes about right here. I don't think I saw an effect of it. So he's got control of the car. I think he's done enough laps through here. We are a good number of laps into this race already. We're about 26 laps in, and I think everybody has the feel of where that transition from that gust of wind is happening.
We were talking about the track temperature as well. That's down to about 86 Fahrenheit, which is pretty close to what it was when we first started watching it. So it's been extremely variable, but it's at least gone back down. So that should make things much more grippy for our drivers. There you can see the weather up at the top of the screen, including metric for our friends in the rest of the world. And Ezra, last lap, let's see what he was this time. 2:02.5. Not quite his personal best again, but still pretty close to it. Dylan, a 2:03.4. So that was almost literally a second faster for the 2 car.
A lot of that was that incident where we saw Dylan go wide coming out of Le Mans, getting into the dirt out there. It looks like, it won't cost you that much. It really does, because that run down Ullman Straight is really important to setting up a good lap time. So you must set the car up perfectly as you enter, coming out of Jean-Debienne and going into Le Mans. You've got to nail that portion of the track where you put the throttle down. And if you have any lift, any wiggle, anything at all, including hitting that grass, hitting that dirt out there, that's going to severely affect your lap time.
And yeah, I think you nailed it, and that probably makes sense as to why we saw him lose so much in comparison. A lot of that curb for BJ Fulton, and now he's going to lose time as Ezra becomes a speck in his windscreen, just nailing that exit in comparison. And continues to try to chase down Dylan Scott. They're going to set another lap now as they just broke under the 1 hour to go mark, so officially past the first third of this race. Dylan Scott runs a 2:03 flat. He's picking it up, see if he could pull away from Kelderman. Kelderman, though, keeps his consistency, 2:02.5 that time.
Yeah, he has been just a metronome through this race. He has a feel for what the car is doing, even with that little bit of damage he has. Meanwhile, taking a look back at the other man of consistency today, Jacob Abrams. Jacob still closing that up little by little, getting closer and closer to BJ Fulton. We could see a bit of a three-way battle here, getting close to the end. I think these guys are just sort of pacing each other out at this point. So they've got some time. They want to watch, see what their opponent's doing. No telling what's going to happen next, though.
Yeah, it's been a good couple recent laps for Jacob Abrams, hitting his personal best today, 2:02.6 on lap 14. So he's definitely hustling it as much as he can because he does not want to lose touch with BJ, especially if he sees more mistakes like that. He could have a good opportunity. Dustin Heindel, in the meantime, 2:03.7 last lap, so he's actually losing ground on those in front of him. He's kind of entering into no man's land where he's way too far away from Jacob Abrams, but he's also a long ways away from Mark Rondeau, who is trying to catch him.
Yeah, meanwhile, we are on board with Dustin Heindel here. Dustin going through, I love this complex, but the reason isn't really what you would think. As you come up here to Tower, I always smell whatever everybody in the infield over there to your right is cooking, and it's just this cacophony. Can you say cacophony for smells? Because that's sound. But anyway, so cacophony of smells coming out of that area, and it's just amazing to smell all the different ways people have cooked their hamburgers and their hot dogs and their steaks. And it's kind of frustrating when you've been in the car for 2.5 hours or so and you're getting ready to go into the pits to have dinner. You want what they're having.
Those wondering about that line on the track, that is a driver's aid that they allow in this league. So Dustin Heindel making use of it, and that shows him essentially where it recommends he hits the brake and gas. Not sure if he's following it exactly.
He was a good bit deeper on that, on the entry there to 17. He was a lot deeper, and he had good speed on that too. So I don't think he's using it so much for the braking points or where you turn in. I think it's just nice to have it sometimes as an additional mark on the track. So like in real life, when you're racing on the track, you can see so much more detail in the track itself. You see these spots around little cracks, little wiggly bits. You see stuff that you just can't see in the sim. Doesn't matter how great of a monitor you have, it just doesn't show up. So having that line on there, some people are like, oh, you can't drive with the line. I don't mind seeing people drive with the line because usually they don't actually follow exactly what it says. They're just using it as kind of a let me get faster quicker and let me have another little visual idea of what's happening on the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I'm told, it's not necessarily the fastest line.
Oh no, it's definitely not the fastest.
So yeah, it's not going to be a cheat per se. It's just there as a helpful guide for drivers. And since they do have drivers of all skill levels in this league, I'm glad to see them allow that in there as we check back in with Jacob Abrams once again. Another personal best for him. In fact, he smashed his personal best last time. 2:02 flat. Jacob Abrams is getting the swing of this track.
Yeah, like I told you before, he's in like with this track, let's say. But look, he's just creeping up little by little. He's getting closer and closer to BJ. BJ might not be moving as far forward as I had predicted in this race. Looks like Jacob might have something to say about that here in the next 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah, if he keeps this up, BJ Fulton is going to have to watch over his shoulder and make sure that he isn't attacked by the 728, especially before we get to the pit stops on this one. Now, we're still early on those. We should see drivers be able to go just a little beyond the hour mark if they want to push it to the limit here. So when it gets down to about 30 to 25 minutes left on that clock in the upper left-hand corner, that's the end of the pit window that you can expect drivers to have to come in. Mark Rondeau has already been to pit lane, but he's also going to have to visit a second time since he came in before the 1 hour left mark.
Yeah, and there not going to be any shenanigans going on here with short fills. Remember, this is a fixed setup series, which includes how much fuel is in the car. These are absolutely filled to the brim with fuel when they go out to start this race. So you cannot say, oh, I'm going to get away with a little quicker car at the beginning and only half fill, and then take the penalty in the middle of the race with the longer fill to get the car where I want. But I don't think you have any opportunity to see that, since these cars must start with full fuel.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody begins with the same amount. Their fuel consumption is down to that right foot, and how soft they are with it. As we come to Larry Haas getting caught by Ian Roche, now not for position. This is Ian getting ready to put a lap on him. In fact, I think Paul Wren has gone a lap down for the leaders too since we last spoke, because Chris Walsh caught him. So we now have two cars that are not able to complete every lap as it stands. And Ian is definitely filling the mirrors of Larry. Larry dutifully will let him through. He knows this race is not with that number 7 car, and a nice gentlemanly pass between them.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ian has quite a gap in front of him. He's looking at about 19 to 20 seconds to catch up to Mark Rondeau. Rondeau, as we mentioned before, does have another pit stop to make. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the end. Rondeau, one of those consistent hot shoes. He is always out there at the front end of the field just because he's that quick and he puts that much time and effort into this.
They weave their way down the back stretch.
Oh, Rondeau in the pit. Rondeau's in the pit.
Oh, now why is Rondeau in pit lane again? Is he taking his scheduled stop? No, he's got a black flag.
Oh, black flag for Rondeau. I wonder if he got too many incident points.
Well, they get up to 17, and then they get their first drive-through penalty. Or excuse me, no, it looks like it's going to be a stop and go for him the way he's serving it. Oh, no, this is not for incident points. He was given a black flag by John Momar, so that was from the race control.
Interesting. I wonder what happened there. Maybe we can get some info from John Momeyer and report that to you here shortly.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some information. So, yeah, I would assume that's related to him being involved in the incident before. So he's been considered at fault here and having to serve that one, which is going to hurt even more because now he goes a lap down. He's got to hope that he can at least get out to try and compete with Wren and Haas at the end of this one. BJ Fulton is stuck between Ezra Kelderman and Jacob Abrams, but they're all starting to stretch apart as Jacob Abrams' attack seems to have maybe lulled a bit. He had a 2:02.8 last time by, which becomes a 2:02.7 this time. Oof, Rondeau continuing to drop positions. Larry Haas hasn't overtaken him yet, but Mark is all the way down to 10th.
Looks like that is a real-time-ish penalty on him for losing control and collecting the other cars. That incident we saw earlier in the race, they went to the stewards. The stewards looked at the incident several times over, probably from about 100 different angles, and decided he was at fault for that. So that is a black flag stop and hold for him.
A long stop and hold because he's still in there, unless he's taking service as he's doing it. Because if that's the case, you get penalized for trying to take service during a stop and hold. It's been almost 2 minutes now. I doubt they gave him a 120-second stop and hold.
Yeah, I don't think it's a 120-second stop and hold, but it could be taking on some repairs, possibly. It's hard to say. I didn't see him hit a wall or anything after that first incident. He looked like he was being pretty clean through the whole race. So this could be maybe taking a coffee break. It is a long race. Yeah,
it could be. Maybe he's got to cool down. Maybe he's not happy about getting the penalty after that, and He stepped away. Whatever the case, he's not on track. But this man is. Chris Walsh has been at the front this entire time, and we haven't reported on it in some time. His gap to AJ Roper, it's up to 17 and a half seconds. This is going to be just a royal showing from Chris Walsh out there in terms of pace and the way that he is just showing them how it's done.
Yeah, I think the odds makers have been trying to do the over-under on how many cars he is going to lap in this race. So I'm going to go take a look at some of those booking sites and see what the actual numbers are for that.
Interesting to note, despite it continuing to look pretty hazy out there, the percentage for rain, chance of rain, has gone down to only 3% now at around 4:30. It continues to go, continues to go down, but the first possibility that we're seeing is around 4:15, a 1% chance I'm seeing. As we said, that means there is still a possibility for that. So we could see rain here, but we'll know as we do have radar on our screen so that we can kind of keep track of it and let you know if any is coming. AJ Roper here, still in second place. The good news for AJ, even though he can't keep up with Walsh right now, Dylan Scott is still about 5.5 seconds back.
Yeah, 5.5 seconds. Dylan Scott's kind of got a Sunday drive right now. He doesn't have a whole lot to worry about. He's just going to keep his pace. Now, it is quite a good pace. He is running in those 202s to a mid to high 202 range. That's all he really needs to do to stay in that position, because Ezra behind him is also running about that same pace. He does not need to push the car too hard because that gap behind him, pretty decent. He's got about 3.5 seconds to Ezra behind him. So just holding on to that, I think Dylan has a good opportunity in this race to just take that last podium step.
Probably going to have to fight hard, though, if Ezra can continue to chip away like he has. In fact, we've got a little more than 20 laps left to go, and Ezra's been kind of consistently putting in 202.5s to 202.3s, just set his personal best at a 202.238. Now, Dylan Scott last time, 202.9. That'll give him about 0.7 of a second. That was actually massive.
Yeah, that's a big jump right there. Now, interesting, I'm curious, people are watching this race live. I keep seeing people pop in and out of the session as spectators. Now, as a spectator, you can ghost drive. You get the same car everyone else is driving, same setup, same everything, and you can go and race as a ghost car. They can't see you, but you can see them. Now, you will get the effect of a draft off of them, but they will not get one off of you. And you can just actually drive right through them. You don't have to worry about passing them legally. Just drive through them. Although it is a little confusing because suddenly you're seeing their steering wheel and their dash display and everything. But it's actually a lot of fun. So I'm wondering if we got a few people out there trying to drive along with these guys, find out exactly how fast these guys are driving.
Well, how fast Chris Walsh is, well, 201.349 looks like his best right now. So pretty darn good lap. And that's in race trim with all the fuel on the car too. I remember he set in qualifying, it was
2:06.
Yes.
And he's out to 19.5. Didn't we just say it was 17? It's now 19.5 seconds.
Wow.
Chris Walsh doing what Chris Walsh does. Man, he is just pulling away from this field.
Ezra down into Sunset Bend once again. Dylan Scott, can he respond to him now that he took a huge chunk out of his lead last time? 202.5. I'd say that's a response. 0.4 quicker than his previous lap. Kelderman, 202.7. 0.2 slower than Dylan Scott that time by. It does look like Dylan has gotten the message and he knows he's got to run.
Yeah, Dylan's no dummy. He's ready to to hold on to that position. He sees that little blue machine in his mirrors, and he knows he has got to put the hammer down if he wants to hold on to that last step of the podium. P3 is a great place to be given this field. AJ just doing a great job out in front of him, and Chris Walsh again just now sorry, we just reported moments ago 19 seconds. It's now past 20 seconds of a lead Chris Walsh has been able to pull out.
Wow. We're now past halfway as well. The 45-minute mark gave us that denomination as we watch Club West Ezra Kelderman work in through Collier. I'm glad you like this section of the track here. I always hate this part, especially the braking in a tower. That kind of kinked braking zone just annoys me.
Well, it depends on how you take that section, and it's really interesting. You can watch the race live, like for the 12-hour, and you can see people who take a juke to the left as they come out of Collier to try to straighten out the braking zone to tower. But most of the pros, we will go wide out of Collier and then kind of diamond off the turn through tower, and it's significantly faster and easier on the car. It's also easier to brake because you're just braking from a straight line, albeit about 1.5 kilometers faster.
My problem is trying to make sure that I don't dip a wheel off into the dirt or something as I'm trying to brake this catty corner.
I will give you that one for sure.
But you're the professional here, and that's why I'm glad I've got you in to at least be able to give that perspective. I'm just the whoa is off course. That was Fulton.
Oh yeah, BJ wide off, and that looks really good for the 728 right there. I think Jacob Abrams is kind of punching himself, realizing he missed a great opportunity to get around him. Now look right behind him. That's going to be the lapped car of Marc Rondeau, who had that long pit stop where he had to serve that penalty. And I just got word that yes, realistic weather is on, so rain is absolutely possible. So it's not just that we're seeing the weather report and it doesn't matter. It actually matters. We have realistic weather, so we could get some of that sprinkly stuff.
And it keeps looking like it's going to, but we heard from the iRacing devs that they're saying, it could look like it's going to rain. It could look like 100%, and yet it never does. Is bounding over the grass and dirt. Great job by Fulton, I have to say, to not panic in that moment. I didn't see that steering wheel rock back and forth suddenly to try and jerk it back to the track.
He did not lose much time at all through there. I mean, that was a little off throttle time. I don't think it hurt him that badly, but that is something that you see the white nose of that white and blue or purplish, whatever color car that is, of Jacob Abrams. He sees there's a chink in the armor. He wants to push a little bit harder, see if he can make him do that again.
Yeah, it's definitely closer than it was last lap. It's down to 0.3 of a second. It's the closest we've seen Jacob Abrams get to him in some time. Behind them, they've still got Marc Rondeau, but he is multiple laps down.
Oh,
so he's not a part of this fight.
Looks like he's got a better line right there. That was good. So I think if you watch, BJ just got a little bit offline there. He didn't connect the possibilities there very well, and Jacob Abrams was able to close that up. But now just pinching off that corner, not letting him get in there, going defensive as they cut through 2 to turn into 3, right up on the curbing. Look at how precise these guys are. This is fantastic driving. If you've never driven this track, you have no idea how hard what those guys just did there. Watching on board here from this car with Jacob Abrams, how BJ is just absolutely nicking every apex there perfectly. That is incredible driving ability.
And in fact, did it there again down at the apex of the safety pin, and Jacob Abrams not able to keep with him. He falls back to about half a second behind. We'll have to regroup, see if he can get any closer to this fight. And just up ahead of them, we keep getting glances of Ezra Kelderman, who I thought was pulling away, but let me double check and see Yeah, he is pulling away. He's pulling away. It's just very, very slowly from BJ Fulton. So that's why we can still catch little bits of him here and there. And Paul Wren, did he have an issue?
Looks like slowing down and just letting people by. I'm not sure what was going on there. Paul Wren, he is a lap down, but let's take a look here. Yep, going wide. That's not a place you want to go wide or stop the car. Good job getting it out of the way, except for that little touch of the tire wall there.
Oof. Yeah, that was not the best of exits on that one. So just put a little damage on the front of the car. Back to this battle. Oh man, Jacob Abrams is all over him now. It's about 1/10 of a second between them. I don't know what happened, but he's suddenly been able to reel him back in.
Yeah, last lap it looked like those two were only about 0.02 of a second apart. So Jacob Abrams is the shark here, smelling blood in the water after he's seen BJ go off a little bit wide a couple of times, get a little wiggly. He was going through Cunningham and Collier. The car got wiggly. I think Jacob is ready to go ahead and make this pass and try to make a run up for Ezra Kelderman.
Yeah, I think Abrams knows that if he wants to try and keep up with Ezra, he's got to get by that dark gray Martini liveried Porsche out of the hairpin once again. Both of them trying to straighten that exit out as much as possible. Remember that gray car behind, they don't need to worry about because he's not racing them for position. The haze is getting so thick out there now at this stage. It still tells me 0% chance of rain currently, with only 2% chance at 4:15, which is about half an hour from now.
So half an hour from now is going to put us with about 7 minutes of rain. Possible. A 2% chance of 7 minutes of rain. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see how this one finishes. I'm actually hoping for rain. I want to see how these guys do in the rain. I expect it to be pretty exciting, but I'm not sure everyone is as excited about the rain as I am. When they released it on iRacing, a week ago or so, through that week 13, we got to take a look at this. This is a good opportunity for pass. Look at this. He's got overlap, puts the nose in, goes deep into the corner through 17. Jacob Abrams has made the pass on BJ Fulton. BJ taking a dive down into the pits, realizing, it's just not for me right now. Let me reset, take a quick break, get some tires, get some fuel, and then go to the end of the race.
And so did our leader, Chris Walsh pitted in, which means AJ Roper is now up at the front of the field. Dylan Scott's behind him. Abrams carries on. So Chris Walsh, Ezra Kelderman pitted, BJ Fulton pitted that lap. Looks like Heindel will also stay out. So that's 3 of our front runners, though. Bit of an interesting strategy. Like you said, we usually see people try to go to the very end of their fuel window, but this is, I would think, about 10 minutes before that closes.
It may be. So back in the beginning of 2003, I was tasked with this group to use the iRacing setup and set the fuel for the race. And a couple of times I was setting up the fuel and people were having a hard time making it to the end. So it depends on each driver how well they're able to make the car go A, fast, and B, fuel efficient. I've said it 1,000 times. Racing is not about speed. Racing is about efficiency. How efficiently can you use the fuel, the tires, the car, the driver? It's all about efficiency. The byproduct of all of that is speed.
It's a good way of putting it. Well, Ezra has been pretty fast out there today, and let's see how efficient he can be heading to the end as he returns in 6th position, but he's also behind Chris Walsh by some margin since Chris already had that before the pit stops. That's obviously not going to change around. That said, Ezra's pit stop was about 2.5 seconds quicker than Chris Walsh's.
Yeah, interesting. And he was also faster than BJ Fulton, which is why well, part of the reason he was able to get around, I think he got around earlier, but BJ right now is about 4.5 seconds off of him. His cone-to-cone time, 51 seconds, 49.4 for Ezra. But Chris Walsh, cone-to-cone, 51.6 seconds. I think he's just taking it easy. He didn't need to go crashing the cones, so he just came in nice and simple. He's got a big enough lead. He really doesn't need to worry about it by making those huge pushes and those absolute last-minute brake presses to get into the pit lane.
We watch AJ Roper lead this race. Will he pit in, or is he going to try and run it dry and keep going for a few more minutes out here? Only he and Jacob Abrams still need a stop, as Heindel has now taken his service. Chris Walsh currently running in third position. Will likely inherit that lead back, but you never know. We could see some crazy stuff out here. The other thought that I had on some of this, I wondered, is that maybe it was raining and drivers were trying to take some wet tires or something out there. That was not the case. But, I mean, if we do wind up getting rain, that could be such a huge advantage, staying out as long as possible, just crossing your fingers that it'll come down. You can do a single stop instead of having to try and come in twice, once for fuel and the second time for rain tires.
Could be an interesting way to play this. And if you're like Mark Rondeau was, before he had to serve that penalty, he was in a good position to be able to take advantage of exactly that. So unfortunate that he got that extra penalty. But right now, I want to go take a look at Ezra and Dylan again. Remember how far apart they were? Well, look at them now. That's getting tight. They're only about a second apart. And part of that is that time cone to cone. It's about a second difference. That allowed Ezra to close up on Dylan Scott through that pit stop rotation. Now Dylan is starting to feel some heat again.
Yeah, Ezra looks like he had an excellent pit stop out there. Jacob Abrams is now into his stall, taking service. So now it's just AJ Roper that still needs to come in. Meanwhile, up at the top, Chris Walsh set the fastest lap. Oh, Jacob missed his pit stall, and that is going to be costly.
Oh, poor Jacob. He was doing so well, too. Let's see what that ends up costing him, though. He had some great laps right up to that. But remember, he had just gotten around BJ Fulton and was trying to get Ezra Kelderman. But BJ right now, BJ is coming down
currently, but 2% chance at 4:15 p.m. It is right now 3:50 p.m. in the afternoon. So again, still very slight chances, but the weather has been looking more and more and more like we should expect rain. Will anybody go by what the radar is telling them, or are they going to go by what their senses are telling them?
You know, we say to other folks when you're the announcers, when you're trying to do the commentary here, we don't really have anyone we're rooting for. But are we rooting for rain? I kind of want to see rain, honestly. Yeah. I would love to see some rain. I think it's going to really shake this race up a lot.
Same. AJ Roper, by the way, pits in, so he'll relinquish the lead. I've only gotten to do one rain race in commentary so far. That was when I got brought on for the iRacing Happy Hour last week. And it is fascinating to watch, especially because they brought on some real ringers. Daniel Morad, in fact, was on that one. Got to talk to him and listen to him talk about how it compares to real life and his experiences and how well they've done with this.
Yeah, they have done a great job. I was a bit skeptical. I really preferred the rain in a different sim. And when the rain came out, like, okay, well, it's going to be version 1.0. Let's see how good it is. I'm sorry, smack my hand. It's really good. I've driven it in open wheel cars. I've driven it in prototypes. I've driven it in GT cars. And in all of them, the feel of the car is really, really good. You have fantastic feedback through the steering wheel. and you really feel like you're hydroplaning when you get to those hydroplane points. Just a funny note: the first one I tried, I took this car, the Porsche GT3R, the 992, and it was on Nürburgring, on the Nordschleife. And I'm like, okay, well, let me try this. Got out there, started driving. I'm like, wow, there's no grip. What's going on? I can't make this thing do what I want. Let me see what's wrong with this car. Oh, yeah, I still had slicks on. I forgot to put the tires.
Yeah, thankfully, my spotter when I hopped into the car told me, you're on dry tires. I guess I had him turned on to let me know on those things, and immediately hopped back out of the car and put the wets on, because apparently it does not automatically just pop them on when you've got rain on the track in a test session.
It does not. But meanwhile, we're taking a look here at BJ Fulton once again. BJ up into P5. Now remember, he started in P6, so he is up a position, even though he had that little bit of difficulty going on earlier. The gap now between him and Ezra Kelderman, 4.5 seconds. So he was holding on to him. He was managing that gap from the front for quite a while, but now he just seems to have fallen back. Meanwhile, Ezra is putting the screws to Dylan Scott. He is a second off of his tail and making Dylan feel the heat right here. I think that's what's causing all this haze, is Ezra working his way through the field.
It really is. Is definitely got it full steam ahead right now, and Chris Walsh does as well, up to 28 seconds now to the nearest car behind him, with less than a half hour left to go. All drivers have completed at least one pit stop. That said, Ian Roche was in 23 laps ago. I think we might need to see him in again. Paul Wren 15 laps ago, and Larry Haas 26 laps ago. So those are your three drivers that likely will need at least one more, but we're not entirely certain on it. We watch from Chris's roof cam here, heading up through Collier once again, getting close to that 4 p.m. mark here in virtual Florida. So it'll start getting closer and closer to that chance, to that point that we said where there is a chance of rain.
Now going through Tower back there as he came out of Collier, Chris takes that line I was talking about, the pro line, the way we go through there. We come out of Collier, we keep the car to the right and push through there. It would be interesting to compare him and the line he takes through there to some of the other cars. That was exactly the way I would do it. If I was there coaching someone, that is exactly what I would coach them to do in just about any car. I can't think of anything except for maybe some high-end Formula 2, Formula 1 car that you might want to loop out to the left. But he did that exactly like I want everybody in anything GT on down to do.
This is on board with Wren. We saw Larry Haas taking his final pit stop, so that confirms our suspicions on that one, that he couldn't get to the end without getting a little bit more fuel to make it. Paul Wren in the meantime.
Yeah, notice how he came to the left there? That is that the track day line, I guess is a good way to call it, where you try to pull the car back to the left. So meanwhile, Chris, when he goes through there, he is letting it run all the way to the right and trying to get the maximum amount of speed, which he is clearly doing, as his fastest lap was a 2:01.077.
At this point, he's looking likely to become the first person in this race to break that 2:01 mark and get down to the two flats. We'll see how long it takes him to try and achieve that. Remember, these cars going to be likely on fresh tires and now on much lighter fuel, so you should see them pick up the pace in this final section of the race. Dustin Heindel down one from where he started as he comes through Sunset Bend, but is looking at a potential 8th place finish. You can see what his best finish so far this season has been. It looks like 6th place, so won't quite reach that today.
Yeah, here we are. This is Heindel going through turn 1. Watch how much of that track he kicked up a little dirt there. You can get away with that, just a little bit of dirt. If you get the tire fully out there on the dirt, it's not going to be pretty for you. But look at him just slicing right through there. beautiful positioning. I think everybody here has put in a lot of practice time. I think when you get these double points races and these long races, you have to put in the time, because if you don't, you're going to miss a lot. You're not going to be able to place the car perfectly, and a tenth of a second a lap over that many laps makes a big difference. So I think you're seeing everybody just nailing these apexes all through this race.
Look, I saw you looking at the timing screen there and pointing at Jacob Abrams. I think his missing his pit box was a lot harder effect on him than we thought.
Yeah, he's looking at a 1:08, a minute 8 seconds, almost a minute 9 from cone to cone. That's huge when everybody else was about 17, 18 seconds faster. Our fastest cone to cone was a 47.0 from Larry Haas, which really good for Larry. 47.8 for Ian Roche, and around 50 seconds is what most people were doing. So it didn't look like it was that big of a mistake, but maybe it was.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, and not sure what cost him to have to miss so much of it there. Regardless, the damage has been done, and that's why he's back behind BJ Fulton now by 20 seconds, and the gap is just monstrous between them. 22 minutes left to go on the clock, so still a number of laps left before we get to that checkered flag. Still the possibility to make mistakes. We have to remember, too, a lot of these drivers probably more used to those 30-minute races. I'm sure maybe the wear and tear of the race might be getting to a few of them.
Could very well be, but wear and tear on Dylan Scott is making him faster. He is now the second or third driver into the 201s. He is closing down on AJ Roper. He's now about a second and a half off the tail of AJ Roper, but second and a half behind him, who we've been talking about all night long, the newcomer Ezra Kelderman.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they're closing in on one another. In fact, Ezra also last lap became another one to break into the 201s. A 201.916 for him, just slightly faster by hundredths of a second than Dylan Scott, who we ride on board with now, coming up to the timing line. So let's take a glance at what AJ, Dylan, and Ezra do as they cross. So we're going to see another significant chunk taken out of the 07, or is he going to be able to manage it? 202.343 for AJ. Dylan Scott a 201.8, and Ezra a 202.4. A little bit slower for Kelderman.
I think the Porsche Club guys, they didn't do it this time, but the Porsche Owners Club, they tried to drive so that the numbers past the decimal are a Porsche model number. We had a 997 and we had a 916. Two fantastic cars. The 997, I drove one for Body Motion Racing. Fantastic car. Loved driving that car. And then, of course, the 916 classic 914-6 style, but it was actually a different car. Brilliant car from back in the 70s era.
When you're able to get your lap down to a thousandth of a second, please come to me and teach me how to do that, because I can't. That's a little bit of a stretch to me.
I've got some time tomorrow. I can help you out with
that. All right. Ezra down here in fourth place. Yeah, really the one to lose out on that last lap, because Dylan and AJ definitely looking quicker. Although AJ was only about a tenth faster than Kelderman that last time by. It was really Dylan doing most of the heavy lifting on that one, continuing to try to hunt down a potential second place in this race.
Yeah, he's just outside of the range where he can get a benefit of a draft, but I think AJ may have had a little bit of an issue coming through Le Mans there, and Dylan was able to close that up. He's down to about 1.6. He was out to about 1.8, but at 1.6, you start to feel a little tiny effect of draft. Not a lot. You may pick up half a tenth here or there, but that half a tenth can get you closer, and then the next lap, and then the next lap, and the next lap. Next thing you know, it's real money.
By the way, we are less than 15 minutes away from to where percentage goes higher than 0 on the rain, but I see no clouds or precipitation, I guess it is on my radar. It's not clouds necessarily because it'd be absolutely covered right now if it was clouds. But yeah, no precipitation I'm seeing nearby at this point. If it starts to rain, it's going to literally just start to rain and not come in from any particular direction for us.
This will be the starting point of the rain. It's not rolling in here. This is where it begins. But look at this little race here. Is that Ezra again?
Yeah,
Who is even? I think. That's Larry Haas. He's Larry's letting him by. Good job for Larry. Knows it's not his race. Got looks like Mark Rondeau behind him. Mark Rondeau still realizes 11th. He can make some points here, and it's double points. So take all the points you can handle.
Yeah, as long as he passes Larry, that he'll go from basically. Well, actually, no. I think it's still
4 points. So 2 points doubled. I think it's 4 points if you can get around him.
Yeah, so it's this. Actually, it's the same if he finishes 11th or 10th here. It'll be 4 points either way. And Larry dutifully gives over to him, as I guess he didn't really want to try and race him too hard. Now Mark has to make up a minute and 12 seconds to catch Paul Wren if he wants to get 6 points.
I think Mark can do it. Maybe. But Paul Wren would have to crash or something. Mark's a good driver. Mark is very fast. Remember, he qualified in 3rd. So unfortunate that he's back this far, but I think he's probably thinking he has a chance. Almost 18 minutes left in this race. Only a minute 11 to make up. I'd like to see him give it a shot. It'll be fun to see him do that.
You never know. Paul could make a mistake out there, so that could help Mark out. He was faster by, I'm looking at the typical time for each of them. It's looking like it's almost 3 seconds difference per lap. So yeah, he's going to start pulling him in hand over fist, but he's got 17 minutes, which is going to be about 10 laps to go, I think.
Yeah, about 9.5 laps, so we'll call it 10 laps. Yeah, it should be 30 seconds, so that'll be half of it. He just needs some major mistakes from Paul to be able to make up that extra position and pick up a couple of extra points.
Exactly. So back to Ian Roche. We haven't focused on him in a while. This is definitely a race of what could have been for poor Ian, because it was looking phenomenal early on, and it just kind of fell apart partway through. With about 26 seconds to catch up to Dustin Heindel, another driver that definitely needs something dramatic to happen to truly catch up to the next car in line.
Yeah, these are some pretty big gaps back here. The real race right now is AJ, Dylan, and Ezra. That little trio right there for the second and third steps of the podium is where it's getting to be pretty exciting. Ezra has now closed down under a second to Dylan. I think Dylan may have had a little issue here or there, but their lap times on the previous lap almost identical. So it must have happened a little bit earlier. Meanwhile, Dylan Scott still got about 1.7 up to AJ. I wonder if AJ is trying to pace him like we were saying VJ was doing earlier.
I think Ezra may have caught up a bit this lap. Look at the 7/10 difference between himself and Dylan Scott. Potential podium on the cards for the newcomer. Can he get close enough that he can actually start to attack here? He's been working on this for a long time in this race, relatively, and needs just that little bit more to get within, maybe about 1 or 2 tenths so that he can try and strike into one of these corners?
Yeah, he's going to have a couple of good opportunities. The big one, turn 17. Like I was saying, there's so many ways in and out of that corner. You can kind of choose which one you want to do based on what you've been watching your opponent. And he's had a great opportunity to watch Dylan Scott go through that corner many, many times. So he's going to really study what Dylan is doing and really choose wisely the right way in and the right way out. We've watched a couple of people try to take that dive at the beginning of the corner. We've watched some really brilliant exits coming out of it. I'm not sure which one is going to work. I've been watching too much other stuff in the field, but right here, this is what he's been watching. I'm probably ready to write a book about the way Dylan Scott goes through that corner.
Yeah, he's definitely had some time to really kind of study and see what he's doing, maybe pick apart his weaknesses. Let's see what line he takes through. Yeah, he's
that wider.
Yeah, definitely look like it, which I think is closer to kind of what I tend to do. I'm not sure which one really. Now you've got me questioning myself, and I'll have to like go back in and see what naturally I tend towards out there, because I can't think of which way I tend to try and turn it as we come out of Le Mans. He's definitely a lot closer. Yeah, he's cut down about 0.2 on Dylan Scott this lap alone.
Yeah, so we're going to see an opportunity for him to strike into turn 1, if any at all. I don't think he has anything going up into Sunset Bend, but as they come through Sunset, if he sets this up just right, say he's a little bit wider, he's going to bring that nose in, put the hammer down, he's going to try to close this up. Meanwhile, Dylan doesn't get good traction off the corner, but uses the outside space, that little cutout there in the wall. You see how the wall is pushed out. That's not from cars hitting it. That's from cars wanting to hit it, but doesn't get quite the push he wants down that pit straight to close that up. He is still sitting at about 5 or 6 tenths off that bumper.
Now, needs just a bit more, and then maybe he could do something here. But he's been working for it. He's earned it, I would say. Ezra kind of, I don't think he's, and the stewards agreed that he wasn't to blame for that incident that we saw earlier on when he came together with Marc Rondeau. So he was kind of he would have been much farther up than this if it wasn't for him having that contact.
Well, possibly. I can tell you, Dylan is a great defender. Trying to get around Dylan, you can catch him, but I can tell you, getting around Dylan is like trying to get around Matt Hollander. He is tough to pass. Man, Dylan can place the car just in the right position. He can alter his line just a little bit to throw you off on what you think you want to do. So watch what he does. See, now Dylan took that faster pro line through there, and he opened that up about 1/10 by doing that. So that pro line through coming out of Collier into the tower turn, that is about 1/10. Dylan took great advantage of that.
And maybe that's part of what's been keeping him at arm's length. Chris Walsh getting very close to getting under 2 minutes and 1 second through this lap here at Sebring. Takes a long time to get around here, and he's using all that he can to try and make faster and faster laps. He's not letting up, that is for sure, as we continue to keep our eyes on this fight for the last step on the podium.
Yeah, 2 minutes, 0.642 was the qualifying time for Chris Walsh. He might be able to hit that in this race, especially if he comes around to one of those back markers and gets a nice little toe down one of these long straightaways. Back, taking a look here, he's just holding on to it. Look at Dylan. Dylan is placing the car where he needs. He's focused forward right now. He's not taking defensive lines. He's still on the attack. He wants to catch AJ right now. He's got about 1.25 seconds to get up there. AJ managing this gap. He has opened it up to 1.3 now. AJ is getting much better exits off these corners. He is focusing on the exit. And I think Dylan may be focusing on braking into these corners and trying to get the car rotated with that trail braking.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned AJ, because I have to imagine he's probably Ezra's biggest fan right now. Saying, yeah, fight him, get a little bit of side-by-side action going, because that'll slow them up and that'll free him up even more. Yes, he's too far away for them to attack right now, but I wouldn't consider that a comfortable gap.
No, definitely not. 1.2 seconds, that's not comfortable at this point at all. We still have 10 minutes. That's about 5 laps left in this race. 1.2 seconds is not a good margin to have at this point if you're the car in front. If you're the car behind, it's great because you've got a great opportunity. You are inside that window you need to be in to catch the draft down these long straights. So I think AJ is wanting to open this back up because it's down to just under 1.2 seconds off of AJ for Dylan Scott. Dylan needs that draft to keep Ezra off of his tail.
getting close to that 4:15 mark in terms of time here in the virtual world. So starting to enter into territory where there is a percentage of a chance of rain. We've been seeing these dark clouds overhead for a long, long time, and I know we're making a big deal out of it, but we're kind of in unknown territory on this one. We haven't witnessed to kind of see what to expect out of iRacing's rain system on these longer races. We don't know if we could still see that big downpour, or will it just be a little bit of a sprinkling, or will absolutely nothing happen and they continue on their merry way in a dry race to the finish of this 90 minutes. But if we do get that wetness, it is then going to be a game of who dares come in to pit, who tries to stick it out.
So for the fans watching the race right now, I want you to take a moment and just set your bets. What is the track temperature? Overcast, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So the air temperature is cooled off just a little bit. We were looking at, what was it, 86 last time we checked in on the track temperature. So fans, take a moment, write it down, give yourself 3 seconds, 2 seconds. What do you got? Where are you? Write it down. And I think we can get that pop up here from our producer. What is the actual track temperature? 78. This is getting chilly out there.
Yeah. It was as high as 97. I think it was the peak that we had seen, as I was watching it. That's the highest I can recall it getting up to. So that's nearly a 20 degree Fahrenheit swing. It's been over 90 minutes. That's pretty darn dramatic.
Indeed it is. And I can tell you from having driven here in real life, when you're going through that period, you have, again, all the different track surfaces you have here. There are patches, there are different pieces of runway, because this was an old airfield, so different pieces of runway, taxiway, whatever. You've got all these different surfaces. They all react differently to these temperature changes. So you really have to be careful where you place the car. And I think iRacing has probably done a pretty good job of mimicking that feel with the track temperature differences.
And for what it's worth, from what I have been told, iRacing pulls that track temperature from just at the start-finish line. So that's not some sort of average. That's what it measures it there. And that's, I'd say, a good spot at this track because it's not shaded or anything, at least for this one, but it definitely has the cloud cover.
And that's also where the pit crews will come out. You go out there with your little infrared measurer and you shoot down onto the track surface right there on the pit straight, and that's where everybody pulls their track temperature measurements from. So pretty common to do it there. But meanwhile, still into this race with Dylan Scott and Ezra Kelderman. Ezra seems to be having, or was having, it's settled down now, some connection issues. He was definitely blinking a bit there when he was getting closer. So I wonder what's going to happen as he gets closer again. Speaking of closer, Dylan Scott is no closer to AJ Roper. AJ is absolutely controlling how close he's going to let Dylan Scott get. Last time through, 2:01.7 for AJ, 2:02 flat for Dylan.
A look in the upper right, 2:09. There we go. That's what we've been waiting for as Chris Walsh finally cracks under the 2:01 mark here. Took him all race, but man, he has been wheeling that thing. You can see a little bit of a slide there from Paul Wren in front of him. We need to cross our fingers that a back marker doesn't wind up changing the complexion of this thing right at the end. I'm sure Paul will do the right thing as soon as Chris gets close enough that he gets those blue flags and will allow him by. It's up to 39 seconds between Chris and AJ Roper, who's currently running in second place. And yeah, there we go. Just peels off, allows him through, and we carry on with 5 minutes left to go. Now, the sad news is for those that did want the rain, my weather forecast has changed to 0% all the way down. So no expected rain for the remainder of this race, unfortunately.
And I am bummed. I really wanted to see rain for this race. I was hoping it'd be a little bit of rain, just a light little sprinkle at the end to make things exciting, because somebody might decide to go in and get those wet tires. But honestly, with a sprinkle, if there are no puddles, I personally am running slicks in a real car. In the sim, I don't know. I would probably go in and get the wets.
From what I've seen and read, I haven't experienced it myself yet. You do actually want to stay on the slicks. That if you, unless there is really water out there on the track, you can overheat those rain tires pretty quickly. So you'll wind up abusing them and be even slower than if you had just stayed out and try to deal with the slipperiness on the track. As we see AJ Roper come around. These guys almost teasing us as well as teasing each other out there, getting so close and then suddenly pulling away time and again. This has been a battle that's just been bubbling and brewing, looking like it's going to happen, and then suddenly it dissipates, as BJ Fulton would love that battle because he's got 11 seconds to make up to them and not sure that he's catching them right now.
Yeah, BJ is just hoping the three of them get really close and mess each others race up. We've only got about 3 minutes left in this race, 3:14, and it's coming down to the wire. We've got about 2 more laps, I would say, to go here. So I think BJ is really hoping these guys go at it hammer and tongs so he can go back up and sit on that second step of the podium.
He might actually have white flag this time by, because there's less than a minute before that 2-minute mark. And Chris Walsh is just heading through a tower right now. There he is on screen. So that's quite a ways away. I don't think he can get to the finish line before that 2-minute mark.
No, not from there. He's got 30 seconds or so to get there. It's going to be tough. He's got that long straight to make it down. He's got to go through Gendebien here, get through Le Mans. It could be close. He's still got about 20 seconds, but I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. And I think he's also watching his time. So if he really wants to end this race, he could just back off a little bit here and force the issue. But with 8 seconds left, he's not making it through Sunset Bend in that time. No. So this is going to be one to go right here.
The first enduro race of the season. And it's looking very much in the hands of this man as he takes the white flag down the main straight here at Sebring International Raceway. 1 to go. Look at that. Now down to a 2:06. What was his pole time again?
It was a 6:30. 6:42. He did a 6:31 in practice, a 6:42 in qualifying.
Literally 400ths off of his pole time there, and it's at the end of the race after he's been on those tires. I mean, Chris has just been a maestro out there today.
As usual, we're used to seeing him at the front unless something really weird happens. If you remember the season opener, he got into a little trouble and was just stuck in traffic. Everybody was comfortable with the track. Everybody was quick at the track, and he could not work his way through traffic. But here, he didn't have any traffic but back markers to deal with. He has led from the beginning and never lost it, except maybe if you consider the pit rotation where AJ was in the lead for a little bit, but he was out there doing, exactly what I was talking about, through that corner. That is the pro line. Chris does it beautifully.
Just a couple more turns to go to bring this home with a victory, and it's going to be victory number, 2. So shockingly, actually. He's only had a win and a second place so far this season. Some of that due to his attendance, but also he's been beat at times. I think he just went almost 4 wheels off into the dirt there. So got to be careful. Still have to bring it home. You got one more turn coming through Sunset Bend. The clock will tick down to 0 as Chris Walsh returns and shows everybody what he's made of. It didn't rain today, but it is going to rain victory for Chris Walsh at Sebring.
Nice job flashing the lights there for Chris Walsh. Meanwhile, looking back at this battle with AJ Roper, AJ is still holding on to about a 1.2 second lead Right behind him, Dylan Scott with Ezra. Ezra has closed it down to 0.4 of a second. This is getting really tight. After 90 minutes, these guys are still this close. I think AJ's probably going to be able to hold on to this second place, but it is down to a second to Dylan behind him, and 0.4 of a second. Ezra going into this last corner. Oh, this is going to be tight.
Coming around it, Ezra wants something out of it. AJ Roper's going to be clear. He's going to get a well-earned second place, and Dylan Scott will finish on the podium. Ezra 0.3 shy in the end of trying to take some champagne today, but with only 0.3 between P3 and P4, there was 42 seconds from first to second place at the end.
Wow, it's quite the gap, but it's a gap we're used to seeing with Chris Walsh out there. And here he is, the usual John Deere Award winner, Jacob Abrams. Really nice drive today. I mean, Jacob, this track worked for him. Unfortunately, he ended up back in sixth place, but that is still a great finish for Jacob Abrams.
That's up 5 positions because he couldn't set a qualifying time. Yeah, I'd say Jacob should be proud of this one. It was well earned, as Ren's going to be one of our last drivers across, which will take us to a quick break. Don't go away, though, because we'll have more coming around. We'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews up next. Welcome back to Sebring International Raceway. Round 6 of the Porsche Owners Club Series sees Chris Walsh return to the top step of the podium. It was a massive 42 seconds over AJ Roper. Just a clinic put on by that 104, as Dylan Scott will round out the podium. Then it was Ezra Kelderman, who came in and impressed us for sure. Had a bit of bad luck, unfortunately, out there. Finished 4th as BJ Fulton gets himself a top 5. Jacob Abrams, a great run considering he failed to set a time in qualifying. He climbed from 11th to 6th. Dustin Heindel was 7th today. And then you've got Ian Roche, the first one, a lap down in P8. Mark Rondeau got a black flag, which made things even worse for him after he got tangled up with Ezra. Wound up 9th. Paul Wren rounding out your top 10. And Larry Haas, the last of the drivers that started this race, 11th. Travis Brown and Adam Abrams were DNSs. Looks like, I think we've got our winner ready to talk to us. Chris Walsh here, who just really dominated out there today. Chris, it seemed like things were just never outside of your control.
Yeah, I mean, Sebring is one of my favorite tracks. So I was pretty happy we're coming here. I was really hoping it was going to rain. The forecast that they showed me yesterday was like, oh, cool, we're going to get a wet race. But nonetheless, yeah, just really, I was working really hard on consistency and pretty much was able to keep hitting purple laps, which was kind of fun there at the end. But yeah, it was a good race.
Yeah, we were watching that. We were wondering when you were going to break that 2:01 mark, and you eventually did. You talked about the rain. We were also watching, and it kept looking like it was going to for much of the race. Had you had a chance to practice much in the wet before today's race? Were you ready for that eventuality?
Yeah, I absolutely love driving in the wet. So I'm really impressed with what iRacing did with the rain. I've been playing with it a lot. It's a lot of fun. Very predictable. You know, I didn't expect them to kind of get as close as they did on the first try. So I was hoping, because I just thought it would make it an interesting dynamic for the race. But you know, the clouds kept getting darker, and I was waiting for that sprinkle. My windshield wiper went on at one point, but I don't know if it was just random. But yeah, it never came.
Your second win of the season. You haven't been able to attend. I mean, what are you looking for in the rest of the season? A championship run, or just pick up P1 where you can?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to make enough rounds this time. The challenge is the real racing season is getting to kick off here in the beginning of April. So it's going to just depend. I think most rounds I should be able to make here going forward, but it just seems that it's 1 week, you're just like, oh, I should be here. And next thing you know, something pops up. So that's just the way. That's life, I guess.
Well, it's a good excuse to have to miss for, but congratulations on the victory today.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
That's Chris Walsh taking the win, as I think Michael has caught up with AJ Roper, who definitely had some drivers making him a bit nervous.
Indeed, he did. So, AJ, end of the race there. Were you in cahoots with Ezra? You were just trying to sandwich Dylan in there and put him under pressure. What was going on? Was that a game you were playing, or was he actually catching you like that?
No, they were catching me. I didn't realize tires were basically free in that pit stop, so I didn't change. They had fresh sets, and they just kind of drove up on me, and I was doing everything I could just to stay in front.
You were still pulling some pretty impressive lap times. You got deep into the 201s, 201.7, I think was your fastest. So still pulling really quick laps. Despite that, Dylan behind you, his best was a 20, was just a couple of hundredths off of you. Okay. But you kept him through the last several laps, 1.2 seconds. Like you were just, you had a tow rope between you and he couldn't break that.
Yeah, it was great. They were definitely there, and a little mess up, and they would have been on top of me. And I don't think I could have done anything if they actually got to my bumper. But hell of a race! Congrats to Dylan, Ezra. That was a fun race.
Did you enjoy watching that in your rear view? Was that slowing them down at all?
I don't think so. They were trying their best.
So great race today. Congratulations on P2. Who do you have to thank?
Thank you. I like to thank my wife. Appreciate all the help and support she gives, and say hi to my boys, Jaden and Chase. Yeah, thank you guys.
And one last thing, were you hoping for rain, or you're hoping for no rain?
I would have liked to see rain. I actually haven't done a proper race in the rain. I did a little AI practice today, and so the rain would have mixed it up and made it kind of interesting.
Well, thanks, AJ. It was great seeing you do a beautiful race out there. Meanwhile, it looks like we have caught up with Dylan Scott.
Yes, indeed. Third place finisher, and it got close between himself and Ezra, down to 0.3 of a second at the end, Dylan. We heard AJ say that he didn't know that tires were free on that pit stop. Did you take fresh rubber there?
I did take tires, yes. I wasn't sure whether to try to Iron Man it, go all the way to the end on one set of tires, but threw on some tires. I noticed Ezra behind me looked like he threw on tires, so I figured probably the smart move, throw some tires on just to be sure.
He was getting extremely close by the end. What was your mental state with him creeping closer and closer? And at times it looked like you could kind of hold him at bay. There was almost an ebb and a flow.
Yeah, there was. Like I talked to last time with Michael, right? I was messing around with brake bias, trying to figure it out. To be honest, at the end of the first stint, I'd switched off the relative. The last time I looked, it was like 12.5 seconds to BJ. I'm like, great, let me just put it in cruise control, be smart, bring it home, be consistent. And then I started to notice a car, and I'm like, wait, where's this guy coming from? Is he just come out of the pits? So I turned the relative on. I'm like, hang on a second, that's not right. And sure enough, I hear the Jaws music, dun 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 dun. And here comes Ezra. I'm like, oh crap. In the beginning of the race, AJ went around me. I don't know if you're aware of this. AJ has a beaver on the back of his car because he's Canadian. There was some discussion, or there may have been some discussion about chasing beaver. I'm not really sure what they were talking about there, but yeah, I was happy to sort of settle in behind him and sort of hang with him and be easy, cruise, keep it nice and easy on the tires. But yeah, apparently Ezra had different ideas. So at the end there, I had to try to drop the hammer. So it's a little bit like the meat and the sandwich there between AJ and Ezra, but in the end, got it done. That's what matters, right?
Exactly. The end result is what you're going for. Now, we have Suzuka up next. That's another track that can often see some wet weather. Since we didn't get it today, you're kind of hoping we'll get it next time, or do you not want to have to race in the rain?
I just like to go as fast as possible. So, I'll race in the rain if it comes, but, I'd prefer dry conditions because I want to be on the limit of what's possible. So, rain will slow it down. But if we have a rain race, then that's what we'll do. We'll do a rain race and we'll figure it out as we go.
All right. We'll keep our eyes to the skies, and congratulations on the podium.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That was Dylan Scott in the 08 today, who definitely had a fight on his hands at the end. With our first Enduro over, we are going to wrap up with a big thank you to our sponsors. Of course, that includes Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Thanks to the team today, Michael, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Like we said, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for Suzuka, Monday, April 1st at 11 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts in the meantime. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
Wow.